Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great panel from Big Bad Con Online. We're so excited to have you here. So welcome to From Fledgling to Establish, breaking a niche TTRPG community into an international space. So, for the longest time, TTRPGs have been dominated by Eurocentric stories and narratives. In recent times, this has been changing. A part of this change is that the mic is being passed to people with different lived experiences. So the Indian TTRPG community is still small. It is an extremely niche interest, but one that has generated a wealth of unique talent and creators. But without the right kind of opportunities and platform, these voices will remain stunted. So this panel will focus on the tools, support, and ideologies that need to be applied in order for creators from developing countries to successfully find their place in the larger TTRPG industry. I'm so excited to have everybody here. I am simply the panel moderator. We have our awesome folks from India right now. I'm really excited about this because I'm a creator from the Philippines, so I feel very strongly solidarity, right? But of course, like completely different communities. I'm excited to get into it today. So let's start with our round of introductions. If we could start with Indrani, I'd love it. If you could introduce
Uh,
yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Indrani. My pronouns are she, they. I am a handmade dice maker and the co founder of Desis and Dragons, which is India's largest TTRPG community. Um, I have a background in community management and building and marketing, and I've applied a lot of that when it comes to building Desis and Dragons out. So I'll be talking from perspective of community building and uplifting marginalized voices today in this panel. Super excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So we're gonna go in like the slightly clockwise situation. Samir, if you could introduce yourself next, please.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ray. Really excited to be here. My name is Samir, he, him, and it's strange. I'll try to keep my very long journey as brief as possible because even though it started when I was 30 and I discovered that, okay, TTRPGs are a thing and there's something that really resonates with me, which I never thought it would because people weren't really my thing. But it became this great channel just to, like be okay around people, like give a way of connecting with people. And that was really eye opening. And everybody who's part of the community now is a part of that adventure I've had. And that is what led to the creation of Panic Not, which was just this endeavor to really have these connections with people, collaborate, create, and have no real preconceived notions of what a TTRPG can really do for you or what it is supposed to be. Because I picked it up through the internet, through podcasts before there was video streams and content creators and commerce around it as much. It was just a bunch of really passionate people doing stuff, and through that channel I was able to find so many people, and we did live conventions and started creating content. And then the pandemic happened and digital became the big thing, and we're still figuring digital out, to be honest. But I'm way more comfortable with people who are really good at it, like Indrani and the Aces and Dragons crew, to sort of show us the way because they get it way more. And we're still trudging along trying to bring it back into the real world. Well, that's enough for me.
Awesome, awesome. It's so cool to think about how far we've come, right? So, and then Shubham, how about you?
Hello, my name is Shiva, pronouns he, him. I'm also a co-founder of Theses and Dragons. But other than that, I'm a storyteller. So I have trained in script writing, and now I also write for kind of like TTRPGs on the world building lore kind of side of things. So any medium that requires you to tell stories, I'm interested in and like to play around with. And I'm working my way around all the different formats because it's an interesting challenge that they all pose. And I'm particularly fascinated by the exploration of mythology, fantasy, and post-colonial trauma and history through storytelling. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I too have very strong post-colonial feelings. Sivarao, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi Ray, thank you for having me here. I go by Shiva, he him. Um, Name is too long to and a big tongue twister for anyone else. So, I am one of the moderators on Day Season Dragons and on the Discord community. And um, I am a lawyer by profession, but I'm also a writer. I've written D&D 5e Adventure, which is up on DM's Guild, and many more in the works. hopefully sometime this year. Uh, what else? I love playing all kinds of RPGs, particularly D&D 5e, but all kinds of RPGs. I'm currently running a game of Masks on the Daisies and Dragon Discord server, which is an open table, 30 plus players, weekly sessions with like play by post and voice chats. It's chaotic.
It
Are
is
you the
so much
only
fun.
GM or are you
For
co-GMing?
that Masks one, yes, I'm the only GM.
Wow. Okay, okay, okay. Don't get distracted, Ray. Okay, focus.
Yeah. Real quick, it's set in like the fictional version of Mumbai, which is the best part.
Cool.
Yeah,
That is so
we
awesome.
created a we crowdsourced an entire city with the players' contribution. It's my heart in that campaign.
Oh, that is so, so, so cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Shiva. And then, so last but not least, Sean, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hey, I'm Sean. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm also a co-founder at Panic Not, along with Sameer and three others who aren't here today. But uh, I'm also a writer, storyteller, I'm a musician. I usually spend a lot of my time figuring out some ways of just, breaking away from reality, and then coming back to it and then mixing the two together. And I think I find a lot of joy in that, which is kind of what drew me to TTRPGs. Uh, that's when I actually met Sameer, and we had started this little game back in a little in the basement of a cafe in Bandra in Mumbai, and that kind of evolved into something so large where we started holding conventions and we met so many people, and I think just that entire feeling of community and just finding so many other people that just want to explore these worlds and these alternate realities and just share parts of themselves, right? I think that was a really exciting part for me, and that's what got me into this, and we've been at it since.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. All right, so actually, before we dive in, there's actually a super good question that I think could like set the tone here. So the question from chat is, Indrani, can you talk about the community management skills that you brought from your previous work into creating Desi's and Dragons?
Yeah. So this is gonna sound a bit strange, but my original bulk of community management experience started when I was like 15 or maybe 14, because I was managing a bunch of different online communities. One being this Harry Potter role playing community. Please, I'm sorry, but
It's okay, we were on there.
and yeah, and I was a 15-year-old managing a community of like over 100 like not just teenagers but also like some adults in the space, and maybe not the best idea in terms of internet safety. I don't recommend it, but it gave me this head start when it came to understanding sort of how to make people feel safe and welcome and how to navigate conflicts. And I carried that over to my earlier sort of explorations in creating smaller communities for like stuff like resin art and things like that. But when it came to Daisies and Dragons, there was a clear motive of creating a space that is inclusive, because India at large has cultural biases, and we wanted to create a space that was for everybody. And having that global exposure, because I was managing international communities as a kid who lived in the middle of nowhere outside of Mumbai, was this the weird sort of experience I had there helped me create the space I wanted for Daisies and Dragons. I hope that
Oh,
helps.
wow. Yeah, yeah, that's super amazing. We love to hear it. Something good came out of the Harry Potter fan. No, to be fair, there's a lot of great stuff in the Harry Potter fan. We're not going to talk about J.K.
Yeah,
Rowling right
let's
now.
not.
But aside from that, so speaking of community, I feel like to get everything going, how do you all feel that the TTRPG community in India has grown or changed over the last few years in particular, right?
Uh, Sam, do you want to start with this? Because if I'm not mistaken, you would have had the earliest experience with this part of the
It's a very
Yeah, I
polite
mean,
way of putting it.
yeah, no, no, age before, wisdom before beauty, as they say. So, well, yeah, in some ways, yes, but I would never really take credit for it, because I distinctly remember 3 weeks or a month or so into my whole TTRPG exploration with D&D 5e, sitting in that very basement that Sean mentioned earlier, and seeing this crowd of middle-aged, well, at that time, now I guess I'm middle-aged, but at that time they were middle-aged, families with like babies and, like groups setting up a massive table. And I'm like, wait, what are they doing? And then I went up to them and I spoke with them, and they've been running a campaign for years. And it's just this little niche, that existed around me that I didn't see. And I got talking to them, and they shared their experiences and how it's a great, like a hobby. People have different hobbies. This is a kind of a hobby. And I'd never looked at it as a hobby because it was a channel for connection for me. And I was like, yeah, I guess it could be a hobby. And even though, it could be entertainment, it could be so many things. It is what you make of it. And that is the actual doorway through which I started thinking maybe this can be bigger than just weekly sessions where I am the DM and meeting people. And then it revolved into finding out what else has been going on. And it's not just Bombay, it's Bangalore, it's Kolkata, it's in parts of Delhi, and a few other people. And yes, it's been an import. It's something people discovered while they were students abroad, or via the internet, or even indirectly through video games. But at the end of the day, they made it their own, because they didn't have books, they didn't have material from which to draw their stories. So until Amazon was willing to deliver something on time, uh, they just made it up on their own. And we said, well, let's bring all of these people together. And it was actually one of our co-founders who literally forced us to actually become Panic Not. Because I was just happy go lucky, like, yeah, I'll just go everywhere where people are and we'll run games. And then Sean started joining in, and then she's like, no, you guys are wasting this opportunity. Get together, get big, invite people together, let them know each other. And that's where we started the Panic Not conventions and the D&D weekend conventions, where we use those you know spaces, public spaces, rather than just isolated fragments of cafes and people's homes. And then it started actually picking up. And around the same time, I was uh, trying to make ends meet, so I figured, why not offer this as a thing to corporates for learning and development, human resources, because I got a great value out of it. I'm pretty sure I could sell them on that. And I was successful to a degree, until I realized imagination plays a really limited role in corporate structures. And it has to be very focused on certain predetermined outcomes. So we said, okay, we'll push the commerce aside for now, and let's get people to become engaged with just the idea of it. So one of the principles of our conventions was no barrier to entry, which means free, which means we'll provide whatever you need to get going. There would be pre-gen sheets, will help you every step of the way, so that you can take this thing and own it. You don't have to, it's like open sourcing knowledge. It's like you don't corral it around this box and say that we own this and we're going to sell it to you. No, this is just a simple set of tools, and you can make them your own. And those real life interactions were actually building up to a great momentum, where we would be having initially a convention every 4 months, to then it became every third month. And then we'd be just ramping it up, and then partnering with any place that will have us, from bars and breweries to cafes and clubs. Give us a space. Bombay has the highest real estate value, so getting a space for like 6 hours a day to run games is really, really hard. So that is where we focused it, because people want to go out, but in financially, it's not viable all the time. So you have to consider that when you're organizing communities in the real world. And that was how we got till the pandemic. And then everything you need to know is something I think Indrani can explain way better, because that when it came to Discord, and she was the one who helped us, like hey, why aren't you guys on Discord? She was our like manager, like self-appointed. She's like, we'll do it. I was like, you do it. I can't do this. And she's like, fine, I'll do it. And then she actually set us up on Discord, and we managed it horribly after she left. But it's something we still try to like utilize. So I'll just pass it along to Indrani now.
I think, first of all, you're doing a great job with it. But I think the pandemic, in a way, was a catalyst for players to join the fold. Like, when Day Season Dragon started, it was during the pandemic, and we were like, we want more people to be playing this game. And as someone who attended Panic Not and met Sam and Sean and one of the other co-founders of Daisies and Dragons through Panic Knot, in-person games are invaluable, but there is a level of accessibility that is lost because of geographical constraints. So, in the strange way, people being hyper online was a blessing because that led to this sort of surge of discoverability for games like uh, tabletop role playing games. And that's where we sort of moved over to Discord, and we created this whole system for people to come in, learn how to play TTRPGs and learn how to run their own games. And then we were like, okay, now you do it. And it sort of became this ecosystem of its own where people are constantly posting, like, hey, I'm running a game, come join. And we've been able to iterate over the last year on what that sort of process of asking for games looks like. For example, we're making sure that content warnings are always mentioned for every game announcement, and safety tools are mandatory for all the games that people run on our server or post about on our server. So I think over the last year, the way things have changed is that it's become more accessible. Solely because all you need is an internet connection and a mic. That's all you need to be able to participate, and that level of commitment is far more accessible now, because in India there are states that aren't as urban as say cities like Mumbai, where most of like these nerd culture events happen in the first place. Like metropolitan cities is where you'd find this sort of thing. But now if you hop onto Discord, there are people who are from like remote states who otherwise don't have access to this sort of like pop culture, nerd culture events, or like say there's no Comic Con happening there, but you can play D&D there, or you can play any TTRPG you want there. So that's been the growth. And I think what's beautiful is that um, because so many creators from so many diverse places in India, because you go a few miles in India, the language changes, the cuisine changes, cultural differences are so varied here. What it has led to is a surge of creators and a surge of people who are putting their sort of imaginative minds to creating for tabletop role playing games. And I think Shubham, Sean, Siva, you can all feel that, but that's sort of what I'll lead into. Shubham?
In terms of the growth of our of your local storytellers, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So in terms of one of the, I think what's been interesting is finding stories that speak to people no matter the region that they're from, of India or internationally, and it's that's been kind of fun because often when you go in, you want to create a very personal experience in your game. You want your players to feel like you're speaking directly to them, but I think that's the beauty of good. I hesitate to say good storytelling because that's putting myself on a pedestal, but of storytelling that if you listen to what your players are talking about, no matter where they're from, you'll be able to create something that speaks to them. And those themes are often universal, and kind of finding these connections with people, that I would never actually meet in real life because they just wouldn't be in my neighborhood, and I wouldn't be traveling to where they are. So to suddenly talk to them and then connect and just click like that because of a theme that we bond over or a story that we bond over has been probably that. Again, it's against the power of the internet in that regard. Uh, so that's I would say storytelling and Discord has really made a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's definitely exploded in the Discord era in the during the pandemic or this thing, because I mean, even within like the modern cities, even like Bangalore, Bombay, people have heard of D&D, people have heard of RPGs, but not many people really go out and play because they think that it's like a time commitment. You need to spend 4 hours. It's might as well just go watch a movie. Uh, that's their background where they come from. But they have heard of D&D because it is referenced in popular culture, TV shows, movies. There's a reference to D&D, so they know what it is. They know what the animal of D&D is. But they never experienced it. I think what Discord has done and what like these online communities like DCs has done is to provide that channel that you come. There are like-minded people here. There are people like in our Discord server also. There's so many people who come in who have never played D&D before, and there's always a game for them. There's always a table for them. There are always like GMs who are willing to walk them through the games which are announced, which are like new player friendly. Um, there is that level of accessibility that's there, which is inviting more and more people into the fold. And obviously, the more people that come in, the value of our community also grows. The only reason I started to write was because I was part of like-minded people here who were all an inspiration. Like Shubham's stories was an inspiration for me to try my hand at writing, and yeah, it just like growth builds growth.
That's
Kind
true.
of a scenario. We're still a long way off from other places, but it's
Yeah.
definitely like the last 2 years is definitely exploded to another level.
Yeah, I think what Sivas touched upon is very interesting because what's happened is that whenever you meet people and you say, if it's something that I do, and this is something that I, put a considerable amount of my time working on, writing on, creating, it becomes really interesting because a lot of people, most people that you'll talk to will say, I would love to try that. You know, they may not always have the ability to or always have the time to do that, but most people say, yes, I would definitely do that once. And honestly, in from our experience, we have realized that once is enough. If you have like a good table of people who are kind, who are nice, who listen to your players, right? Once is more than enough. And then people just kind of get into it. I mean, not everyone will have all the time in the world, but whenever they can, they'll go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the magic of TTRPGs is you just need to try it once, right? Just to see it in action. Actually,
Some
we
call
have
it
a lot.
magic.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, some call it magic, some call it addictive qualities, whatever.
It's true. I was trying to be nice. Like a lot of the first games I designed, I was like, I just need to get them hooked once, right? I just need to get in and do that. So we have a lot of great questions from the chat. We'll see how much we can fit in. But there's one that I'd really love to ask Shubham. Does the cultural influence of working in India affect running or writing games for an international audience? Right.
Yes, to an extent. So I think one of the things is when you're writing for an international audience, you are conscious that a lot of the terminology that you might want to bring in or how you might want to describe things um, require a fair amount of attention. So, for example, everyone knows what a castle is, right? Because it's just so prominent in Western culture that we know. I say castle, or if I say a shrine or a church, you get a very clear visual image. But if I'm trying to describe an Indian temple, the architecture is very different. And the terminology for it, even just the English words for it, aren't that easily known. And you want to keep it accessible at the same time being descriptive so that it creates a different image. So those kind of challenges, often describing simple things just that are culturally specific, right? For example, everyone knows that bowing is a form of respect. And for example, the more popular or well understood is, so I would say the more kind of from China and Japan, kind of the physical bow like that. But in India, for example, a lot of times the sign of respect is to touch someone's feet, right? Which is again, it doesn't translate unless you have a little bit of that cultural nuance, but you don't want to disregard it because it's new, it's fresh, in the sense that it's not seen in the scene generally, and at the same time, it gives you a representation of a whole different community, right? So. Just figuring out how to do that has been an interesting challenge for an international audience. Um, but other than that, really, what's I like it goes back to this where these aspects of representation change, but I would say on the whole, a lot of the thematic links keep it consistent, right? Like one of the things that love, right, is it's one of those things where it doesn't matter which part of the world you're in. If I'm talking about a story around love, it will translate. And whether you take Romeo and Juliet and two war-torn houses, or you take India and you make it about like a class or caste divide, and you still explore the same divisions, you can do it. So in that sense, it's not difficult at all. It works as long as you create a thematic consistency. But it's always about nuance that's been an interesting challenge to figure out how to do.
Oh yeah, that's a wonderful answer. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely finding those commonalities are so important. Yeah, so I think like we've very clearly established like where we are right now, where we've come from. But what do you feel are like the current challenges that the community faces?
I'll start. I think India at large has, I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about community management, but there are certain cultural biases against socializing in a certain way, or being queer, or being from a marginalized community, whether that's religion or caste, because the caste system is still big here. Um, there are a lot of nuances to how socialization in India is approached. And the goal has been to break that. Often we'll have folks come into our server who'll be like, um, I've never played. I don't know anybody who plays, and they'll have, say, the pride flag next to their name, and then they'll come into chat and they'll see somebody else who's like spamming pride emojis on the server, and they'll be like, "Wait, what? What's happening?" And it's this moment of shock where they're like, "Wait, this is." There are other queer people who are openly being queer in this space, and that blows their minds. And it used to blow my mind when I first started like interacting with other queer people. Um, so I think convincing people that, hey, it's okay for you to feel safe here has been a challenge. And the only way we can convince them honestly is to be like, just hang out, see how you feel, and see what the people are like, and hopefully it works out for you. But I think it's just, not only is it making people feel safe, but it's also making sure that um, we take a strong stance for such things. People often say that if a space is safe for everyone, it's safe for no one, and I think that's something I really believe in. Is that if we've built sort of this culture of like, if you see someone being pushed out, or if you feel someone being made to feel like, if they're other, then talk, like make your voice heard, make your support known. And building that sort of culture has been not a challenge, but something that we've been mindful of. And, there are the occasional bad actors that you end up having to deal with. But yeah, from a cultural perspective, I think that's something that's been important for the community. But there are like other layers to barriers of entry, and I think Sean and you guys can take that.
Yeah. So I think one of thank you, Dan. That was a great answer. Uh, and I've seen that happening, like even in person, not just online. We've had to like troubleshoot so many different things. Uh, I think that another big barrier is that even though we have like a very strong, rich culture of storytelling and art and creativity, especially on in a lot of cities and even further away, like if you go further away you get from the cities, everyone is focused on earning their keep, right? Earning their living. So people are focused on careers that might be more functional, right? And a lot of those people that I've spoken to feel like, oh, this is too creative for me. I might not be in a place where I can contribute to this. And the truth is that if you like watching a movie, or if you like, anyone can be part of it, right? As long as you have a DM that's listening to you, and because you just have to like be there, right? You don't have to do as much prep if you're playing, right? And kind of breaking those ideas that I need to be a creative person to be part of uh, something like this, to play this game, to play TTRPGs. I've seen that as being a very big barrier to a lot of people, especially. Time is the second thing, but time is going to be, it's more universal than this. Like over here, especially, I feel like a lot of people feel that they need to be creative. Um, yeah, Shubham, do
Yeah,
you want to like add?
Can I just add something to that?
go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So exactly what Sean said, Sean touched upon this, that there is this the priorities on how like the society itself you know inculcates on you in Indian society, at least from my childhood, was that you earn, you focus on your career, you focus on your profession. Gaming is considered only for kids, and you should outgrow it. Like that's the kind of like culture that I come from. I know that's a culture that majority of us come from, um, and just hearing stories about like how in the US you have like D&D clubs in school. I was very envious of that, but um, you know uh, you grow up, you see these kind of people, you see like other creators, you see people who are so talented at story writing, or even as a GM, in a professional capacity, and they have an alternate career, they have a second career which is their main, not alternate, but that's their main focus, and this is just a side hobby. That's like a big challenge to overcome, the mentality that you are talented, you have a space here, you have a safe space, your talent can be nurtured. um, Feel free to like create the content that you want to create, to breed and groom those kind of creators. That it's going to be a generational thing, but I feel like we are definitely on the path towards that. I feel that there are enough opportunities now, not just from a TTRPG space, even from a creator content kind of space, like in say, screenwriting, or uh, in movies, in OTT platforms. There's a lot of like safe space being provided for these kind of creators, and TTRPG is not far behind in the same space. But it's
Yeah, and I
definitely a
feel like it
challenge like that, to
comes.
break down that mental barrier, that this is an all good viable option for you to pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel that comes back again to what Indranee was saying about creating a safe space. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important because uh, there's a lot of ways where you can feel unsafe, uh, whether it's by gender or you know it could be class, it could be religious, it could be uh, economic background, or so even socially. There's so many different barriers to entry, and I feel like what we've seen, at least with TTRPGs, is that like once you get somebody on the table and you have a few other people, and sometimes it'll be difficult because uh, people will have different ideas of what it's supposed to be, and there will be people butting heads. But eventually, if you talk to them, right, and you have a conversation with them about, okay, this is something that somebody else felt offended by, or we understand where you're coming from, but these are the rules of the table, and if they accept that and move through that, it becomes a really really fun space for anybody of any background. It doesn't matter what. And I think that's one of the most exciting things that has been part of this community. Just discovering everyone over here as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned economic barriers, and I think Sam, you can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks. Actually, yeah, that was one of the first priorities that when we started launching Panic Not, we were concerned why. Because we didn't want it to be a Comic Con. That was the number one thing. Because I went to Comic Con and I was not impressed, because it's like a shopping complex with branding and very banal sense of creative culture. It's aspirational in all the wrong ways, where consumption equals creativity, which it doesn't. Uh, I come from a background which is highly varied and diverse. I'm from an family that is interfaith. I've had education that is convent. I've worked in academic research and creative script writing for years, until winding up in like purposelessness, but you're comfortable. Okay, and that is where I found this to be that intersection which we all talk about, whether it's an intersection where in a safe space you can challenge your own biases, you can challenge other people's preconceived notions, and in the face to face experience, getting them to believe that the people you're around have your best interest at heart. That has always been the tool in person of resolving conflict. But the conflict you cannot solve is their individual reality, which in a country like India stems from financial insecurity. It stems from temporal insecurity, which is this the best use of my time? And one of the campaigns which we saw some success with in our early months was, you're going to spend 750 rupees uh, going and watching a movie, popcorn, travel. And you're going to spend 3 hours, which is usually how long a typical Indian movie in Hindi is. And you're going to come out of it and move on and talk shit about it, or like it or hate it or whatever. But why not try being the hero of your own story? you know Join us in an adventure. It'll cost you nothing. It'll cost you a cup of tea and some snacks, which you would have spent anyway. Like making a financial argument for why this is a better alternative than so many other things out there, which if you come from a spectrum where you didn't have enough money to earn and then you got enough money and now you have the hard choices to make, where does that resource belong, this cuts through everything, because this spirals off what I think Shiva must have experienced. And having worked with lawyers in our group and seen what that in career is like and how radically it can affect you in India especially, becoming a creator is so empowering, it is so liberating. And now it is also financially viable, because what we are today in India is what was 2010 or 2005 in America, which is people were like, oh, I can actually get into TV. Becoming, a TV writer is equivalent to becoming almost like a mechanic, because the number of, it's a craft, it's not a innate talent, it's something you can work at. And the same thing holds true now for things like the gaming industry. In the last 3 years, the gaming industry has grown at about an 11% rate year over year, and the lockdown has like spurned that on. The board game investment in our country is subsidized by the government, because it is an area they see as being great for exports. There are opportunities, and but none of that matters if people feel like, oh, it's not for me, whether it's for creative reasons or imposter syndrome reasons, or there's no future pathway. And that is what needs to be addressed, which is to show that, yeah, there are companies or institutions, whether local or international, that are willing to take India seriously, not just as a consumer market but also as a creator market, which you got to do the math. It's 1.3 billion people, 800 million, young people roughly, or voting age people, out of which like 350 to 400 million people. That's more than the entire global audience for TTRPGs in America. Like Europe is growing, but I think you want to get in on the ground floor, India is the place to go. But make it fair, make it equitable, and that's what we're hoping to do. In once things normalize and we can go out there and meet people again and set things up in motion. We're already setting up something with one of the biggest universities in India to help their students sort of make it a part of. Like you were talking about like a high school club, Shiva. We're doing that for college, for a college here in Bombay. We're helping them own it so that they can, when the new semester starts in August, July, they'll be running it. So it is a mental block, but we need to sort of address it frankly, that we're not
Yeah,
privileged enough to just take 4 hours out and go have fun. It can be way more than just fun. Let your passion be your revenue.
yeah, and
Never you
there's a
10
lot of
years
work that
back.
can be done in the grassroots. Sorry, yeah, I was saying there's a lot
No,
of
go
work
ahead,
that can
sorry.
be done in the grassroots, and yeah, I feel like this is something that as a child, because children will have time, students have time, and it will not be a waste of their time, because there is so much to learn about being personable, about understanding other people. It's not just uh, it's not so uh, banal way, or just it's just you and a screen, right? You're interacting with people, you're learning about social things. You can use it to teach, right? You can use it to teach politics, you can use it to teach understanding of gender. You can so many different things that you can use it for, and I feel like that is the place where we want to be, where we want to be creating, but also like building this community, right? And there's so much that can be done at the grassroots, I feel.
Yeah, just because the thing about financial viability, right? Mental blocks is definitely one thing, and that's the other thing is that people see it as a waste of money, which is weird because you're not really asking much of them. Most TTRPGs don't cost you unless you go buy the whole PHP or but like so many indie games are available for no cost. Uh, it's just that the idea of storytelling and art has been relegated to and excess for so long that overcoming that and getting people to just play is a big ask. And it's kind of weird because we do have a culture of storytelling, but we have almost kind of suppressed this renaissance that we need of art.
Yeah,
And yeah,
but
it's
yeah, I
it's a
just want
weird
to add to that.
intersection of issues that we need. A weird intersection of things we need that isn't happening, but it is
Like
slowly kind of changing. I think with the next generation. Sean.
I can really feel you, Shiva. I can feel
Yeah.
all of that that's coming out because it's like I felt it too, because like so much like we do have a strong culture of storytelling and art, but that's been focused towards the rural areas, but the tribes are doing this because it's part of who they are. But for us, it's always been like, gotta work, gotta earn that money, gotta bring home that money. And
Yeah.
we don't focus as much on the arts being a viable option, like Sam was saying.
Not at all.
And yeah, this is that turning point, and it's really exciting. It's so
Yeah.
exciting for like writers and creators. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to like the future.
Right. Take it away.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Andrani.
No, please.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like with our remaining time, I'd love to hear about like, so we talked about the challenges and where we came from, but what are your hopes for the community, which we started touching on, right? What do you hope for the Indian TTRPG community?
Can I start for
Um,
that one? If I don't, or sorry, Indrani,
yeah.
you have something.
No,
No, no,
go
go.
for it. You're
Okay,
so good at this.
no, okay. So the one, there are many different things that I'm sure everyone will touch on, different aspects for the community. For me, I think is a more collaboration with in the international space for the community, like connecting with creators in different parts of the world, just not just the West or the global North, but across the world. Because it has so many different benefits. One, it opens up your worldview dramatically. It builds better bonds because there's been such a shift towards isolationist policies in the world. But the more we connect, the less likely we are as a people to be okay with kind of these aggressive ideas about othering everyone else. So just that level of connection. And also because that's probably the best way to create sustainable systems, because if you try to create a kind of walled off garden where we are consuming, the money runs out. And eventually there's a few people at the top and they're kind of becoming the leeches. But when you have this global economy that you tap into, then there's multiple avenues, and we don't have to be these crabs in a barrel attitude about like I need to be at the top at the cost of you. So if it can be the space where there's say bigger companies in the West who want, say, diversity in their storytelling, not just like in terms of representation or voices, but what do you call it? Just want to hear from different creators or different ideas. That's great because then money comes in from there. At the same time, if they are working with local creators, then they are creating content that people in India will want to buy, but also internationally, right? So just I'm particularly hopeful and excited if we can create more links uh, internationally, because it'll become a long-term project that way, and it won't die out with one Indian company, right? Like Daisies and Dragons shouldn't be the end of all things TTRPG in India. That would be the worst case scenario. So yeah, I'm hoping for like a more global stage.
uh, I'll keep mine brief, but I think more things like Big Bad Online, because geographical restrictions, even within India, are an issue, but outside of, like, we would not be able to participate if this was happening in Oakland, California. The fact that it's happening on the internet allows us to have this conversation with Ray and allows us to interact with people from across the world. So I think adapting to make things accessible to people from different countries like ours and Ray, yours as well, um, is important in my opinion, so that everybody can have a space at the table. That's me.
Sam, I
Sam,
think
you
you're
hear?
muted.
Sorry.
Damn, just
Sam,
when the time is running out. So I'm not, I mean, at best, what I just hope is that we can do better tomorrow than we did today, which means more connections, more voices, stranger voices, challenging voices, and never being shy from like engaging with anything that we don't feel comfortable with, because it's only through understanding will we be able to resolve it and then make it part of ourselves. And that is where creating content is a big part of it. So I won't get into any of the details, but I will just say uh, we're launching a magazine this month. People should definitely just check us out on Panic Not India on Twitter. We'll be making announcements. We're not that digitally savvy, but the magazine production quality is brilliant. Wonderful artists, excellent adventures. You'll get to understand where we come from and where we want to be through the stories we tell. And that's the best future I can imagine, filled with stories.
Awesome, awesome. And
I feel
Sean?
like
Sean?
Sam, Shubham, and Imran have covered quite a bit of it. I feel like yes, we do want to be collaborating more with the world outside, and more than that, bring more of the world here. Let them come to India and see who we are and listen to our stories and listen to our history and our dreams for the future. Right? I mean, this is a great start for that. Uh, and yeah, I feel like we are releasing this magazine and we've got so much to do coming up. And I feel in terms of like building the community, I really am passionate about looking at the grassroots of it, and kind of kickstarting that, just feeding that thirst for adventure, which every child has, everybody has, and just giving them that opportunity to experience it. And also, taking the matter that we have and translating it for the rest of, just at least here to start here with the rest of the country, because we, a lot of us come from some sort of privilege which allows us to be, uh, you know, we have access to so much more than a lot of other people. And just taking that and bringing it for everyone, not just for the privileged few. I feel like that's something that I would like to see in our future.
Awesome, awesome. And last but not least, Shiva.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say because most of the things have already been covered. But my hope for the TTRPG community in India, at least, would be twofold. First, I would want the TTRPG industry itself to become a sort of mainstay in the gaming hobby sector, in the sense that it should not be a, oh, I've heard of this, but I don't want to try it. That attitude, hopefully, that does go away in time, and we spread the wonderful love of TTRPG to as many people as possible within India. That's definitely top of the list. To make it as mainstay as possible. And second would be from a creator's point of view. I would hope and wish and pray that more creators find their voices, they find their inspiration, and there is a platform for them to bring out the stories that they want to tell about Indian culture. We've been, like everybody's mentioned here, we've grown up on stories. I've been told stories from my grandfather, like till the time I was 10 years old, and these are the stories that we've all heard, we've all like lived on, and there are creators out there who are talented enough to bring these stories out in the TTRPG industry. And my hope is that they will find their inspiration and their voices.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I said,
I
yeah,
was
yeah,
just
that's
gonna
it. Terrible.
so bad at this, but
Well,
thank you
thanks to
so much
everyone for
for.
for just
Yeah,
coming and seeing us and hearing about us, and we hope you'll
Yeah.
keep following and doing
yeah,
all the social thingies that keep
Yes,
us
please.
connected. And thank you to
And
yes,
Big Bad
please. We would
Con,
love to connect.
Yeah, a big
Ajit,
thank you to Big
George,
Bad.
Sean, no, not this Sean, the other Sean, uh, and
I don't know
Ray
which
for
one you're talking about.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Remember to
everyone.
follow everybody here.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
we'll
Bye.
see
Ray.
you next time. Thank you so much,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.
Okay, take
Thank
care.
you, everyone.